Thoughts from the government this morning in the form of Rachel Maclean, Minister of State for Housing and Planning. Hi, how are you? It's good to see you. Thanks for joining us on the programme. Let's go straight in, should we, on what is happening with our armed police. Under what circumstances will the military be expected to move in, given that we don't have enough police officers with weapons?
So, obviously, these are matters for the Met Police Commissioner and the Home Secretary to work very closely, but public protection, of course, is the first priority. And that's why it's right that the Home Secretary said she's going to review, as she always does, she's going to continue to review the legal framework that sets out the balance between those very brave officers who have to make split-second decisions in the interests of public safety. But clearly it's not right that they then fear ending up in the dock for carrying out their duties.
In the meantime, while that happens, there are lots of armed police officers who are saying, you know what, I'm not carrying a gun anymore. As a result, they've had to turn to the military. Would soldiers receive greater immunity than armed police?
So I think the use of the military is standard in government. This is a long-standing practice for soldiers to collaborate with the police and other areas of government, and it will be governed by detailed protocols that will be worked out by the Home Secretary and the police. Obviously, I'm the Housing Minister, so some of these operational details are things that will need to be very seriously considered. But ultimately, it is about keeping the public safe. They won't have powers of arrest, but they will work very closely with other professionals to keep the public safe.
What do you think? Should they be allowed greater immunity than armed police?
I mean, look, that's not a matter for me, and that's ultimately.
Well, you're a government minister representing the government this morning, and I'm asking you, as the government minister, do you think that if a soldier is on the street, he should get, or she should get, greater immunity than an armed police officer?
So, what I want to say is what's really important is keeping the public safe, and the government will do whatever it takes to achieve that. I mean, ultimately, we're talking about people who have to make split-second decisions. That's what firearms officers do, and that's, of course, what soldiers will do in times of war. And all of these are governed by legal frameworks. And that's why it's right that the Home Secretary is looking at some of this to make sure that we don't have a situation where these brave police officers feel that they cannot carry out their duties.
Would soldiers get immunity where police officers wouldn't?
So that is a matter for the Home Secretary and for the Defence
and for the government
Secretary. And for those are operational. Those are operational matters that will need to be discussed, and I'm sure that will be part of the review that the Home Secretary is
Should armed police be allowed to step away from their duties?
So, I mean, this is a broad question, and of course they have taken that decision. And I think
they be allowed to?
I mean, they are there
to go on strike, of course, are they?
No, they are there to serve the public, and I'm sure that they're doing it reluctantly. And it's right, obviously, that Commissioner Mark Rowley is working with his colleagues to resolve these issues. I'm sure that no police officer would want to do that. They come in to serve the public. They feel very strongly and passionately about what they're doing. And I think it's right that we look more broadly at some of those legal frameworks and continue to look at those.
And in the meantime, should they be allowed to step away from protecting the public?
So, this is not stepping away from protecting the public.
Well, it is. If they're putting their guns down, what if there was a terrorist attack?
So the public will be safe. That public protection is vitally important, and that's always the priority for the Home Secretary.
And we're having to rely on the army to do that because police officers are putting their guns down. Yeah,
but they are trained professionals. Our armed services are second to none. They're, in the world, they are trained professionals.
I understand that, Minister. They're there to are trained professionals as well, and we spend a lot of money on training them to carry guns to protect us. Should they be allowed to say, you know what, we're not going to do that anymore?
Well, it's obviously not a good situation. That's not.
Is it a bad situation?
That's not where we want our armed officers to be able to carry out their duties. I mean, let's be clear, they have to make those split-second decisions in the interests of keeping the public safe. And so, we want them to feel confident in doing that and not feel that they are going to end up in the dock for making those very important decisions.
And in the meantime, is it right for them to step back from their duties?
So I can't be any clearer than I have been. This is a matter for the Met Police and the Commissioner, Mark Rowley, and the government, and he's working for his colleagues, and it's a matter for the Home Secretary. And as I've said, that work is going on now to keep the public safe.
When can we expect the announcement on HS2?
So the speculation at the moment that I'm aware of, I've seen it reported, but there is no announcement at the moment.
No, when can we expect one, though?
I'm not expecting any announcement in particular. When there's an announcement, it will come forward.
So there isn't going to be an announcement?
Well, I don't know if there's going to be an announcement or not. What we're looking at is...
Former Transport Secretary seems to think that there was. Grant Shapps yesterday on this programme saying that it was irresponsible to keep ploughing money into the HS2 project. I mean, that's suggesting that that's not going to happen anymore.
Well, we see speculation, and it's obviously
so
right.
He's only speculating, Grant Shapps.
We've seen speculation in the media, and obviously it's always right that the Chancellor and the Prime Minister think very carefully about these projects that cost billions of pounds. But at the moment, our focus is on delivering HS2.
OK, so Grant Shapps is wrong. So your focus at the moment is on delivering HS2?
Yes.
So all of this speculation is incorrect?
The focus is on delivering HS2, and that's, more broadly, what we're doing is we are spending significant amounts of money on transport across the country.
Right up to the northwest.
We continue to support transport connectivity and infrastructure. We've invested something like £33 billion on transport all across the north since we've been in government.
So the northern sector is safe?
As I said, I'm not here to make an announcement about HS2. You're asking me about speculation. That was in the media.
OK, so just to clarify, you're pausing it, not cancelling it?
No, there is no announcement at the moment. You're asking me about
the northern
speculation and reporting, and it's not for me to say I'm the housing minister.
No, you're representing the government.
It's not to say whether we are stopping or starting it, but what you've heard the Chancellor say very clearly is that it is always right, as a responsible government, to look at where you're spending significant amounts of public money, especially when the public finances are under pressure more broadly.
OK, and you want to spend something like £12.5 million on a levelling up boost for pubs, museums, sports clubs in the north. Wouldn't that rather have a better rail service? No,
I think, look, this is a really important announcement. It's 45 projects that have received a share of this £12.5 million, and sometimes they're small projects, but sometimes they are much loved local heritage assets, such as a railway bridge that's being restored in Yorkshire, such as the Withall Transport Museum that's quite near me. I remember taking my children to that in the summer holidays, and they're going to restore a double-decker bus. These are community-led projects, often led by volunteers at the heart of their communities. They're really valued by local communities, and actually that's what levelling up is all about. But it's only one part of our levelling up agenda, and it comes on the back of all the work that we've done on free ports and devolution and investment zones across all 4 nations of our United Kingdom. OK.
Something else that is part of your remit, of course, is what we were hearing from Jason Farrell and people sleeping rough on the streets. You pledged twice in previous manifestos that you would sort that out so that people would not be sleeping rough come 2024. I'm not sure which part of 2024. Do you still stand by that pledge?
Yeah, it remains a priority for us. We don't want to see people sleeping rough, and that's why we've invested in homelessness prevention work. We work with local councils. We have significant funding going into a lot of projects to help end rough sleeping. And it's really important that we do.
And a priority is the same as a promise?
Of course it is, yes. It's something that we've said multiple times, and back with government funding, which we're giving to local councils and a number of projects to make sure that they do work with people who are unfortunately homeless, and also to try and prevent that homelessness from happening in the first place.
What about when rich people die? Should their families pay less tax, inheritance tax?
Oh, you're talking about inheritance
tax
here. So, again, this is something that would happen at a fiscal event. And as far as I'm aware, there is no decision or announcement on that at the moment. OK,
because Labour claiming that inheritance tax changes would save Rishi Sunak's family almost £300 million, suggesting that it's a tax that would benefit rich people.
Well, I sort of slightly disagree with your comment that it's only for rich people. A lot of people feel very strongly about inheritance tax, and I'm a Conservative, and I believe in lowering taxes wherever possible.
3.73% of UK deaths have resulted in inheritance tax.
Well, I think a lot of people do feel quite strongly that actually if they have their own home, they should be able to pass that on to their children.
3.73% of deaths last year. Tiny
yes,
majority.
but I think, look, well, you know, that's people that have died last year. There's also people that are going to die in the future. It's a natural human instinct to want to pass on property. But as I've said...
But 96% of people can't.
Well, as I've said, there's no announcement on this, and I think the Chancellor will be obviously looking at this in a fiscal event or a budget, as he does.
OK, 27,000 estates in the UK were hit by inheritance tax last year, of the millions of people that died.
Well, you're talking about historical figures. As I've said,
I
think most people, it's a natural human instinct to want to be able to pass on property, and who knows what their houses will be worth when they actually do come to pass on that property. But as I said, there is no announcement on inheritance tax at the moment. Again, there's been some reporting on the media on it, but these are matters for the Chancellor, and we will look to see what he comes forward with in the next fiscal event.
Always a pleasure, Minister. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bear with me 1 second, if you would, please. Quick look.